Okay, welcome everybody and family and cousins, and thank you, the Legion, for coming. Our dad will really appreciate your being here. It was very important. So I think as we take this moment to gather here today, to grieve the loss of our dad and to remember his life, Louie Olsen, we can be grateful that we all shared in his love. If there is a theme for this service, I would say it should be love. Dad just simply loved life. He loved his parents, his siblings, his work, fishing and exploring and nature, and he definitely loved his kids. He once told me he would have liked to have 4 more just like us. I thought, really? We were fortunate growing up with our dad that he was a great teacher. He also taught us to love. He was always there for us, so in the end, it was easy for us to be there for him. He also taught us to appreciate what we had and to look around and appreciate the world. I invite everybody today to say something as you wish in celebration of Louie. Following, we will have a procession by the Royal Canadian Legion from Prince Albert, and after which you can come forward and they'll ask you to pin your poppy on the cushion up here. Dad, like his brothers, were very proud of his service to Canada and in World War II, and has been a long-time supporter of the Legion. I guess statistically, Dad was 99 and a half years old, outliving his siblings, which he thought was pretty good. And he outlived the age of his mother, too. Like most of his life, it had its ups and downs, but Dad was always grateful, always joyful, and always loving. I'm going to read the obituary that we have. So, Louie Olsen, son of Edward Olai and Lillian Celia Lundberg Olsen, was born in Saskatchewan. Olai was a carpenter, contractor from Norway, and Lillian was born in Duluth, Minnesota, to Swedish immigrants. Olai was on his way to establishing himself in Saskatchewan when the Depression hit. In 1929, the family moved to the Mayview area, which is just south of the Prince Albert National Park. Here on the homestead, Louie and his brothers had many memorable adventures. They were able to fish, hunt, trap, and develop a healthy lifestyle amongst the forests and the lakes. The siblings also developed a lifelong bond between themselves. As Olai was able to support his family with work off of the homestead, they all enjoyed somewhat better lifestyles than their neighbors. That's what my dad said. He said, we had a pretty good lifestyle. They had 2 coal oil lamps, which meant they could have light in the evening. They had a horse. Grandpa made them skis. And most enjoyably, they were able to take music lessons. This love of music was strong, and at about the age of 15, Louie trapped and sold squirrel hides to buy himself a mandolin. But Louie particularly enjoyed playing the violin and frequently played along with his brothers and other musicians just for the love of music. Louie was also an excellent baseball player, and they went to small towns and played and made other teams angry because they would win. Louie and his 3 brothers were eager to sign up for the service in World War II, looking for adventure. Louie trained with the RCAF and was a flight engineer, flying Halifaxes and Lancasters during his 3 tours of duty. Along with his brothers, they were very proud to serve Canada and fortunate that they all returned safely. Like his own dad, Louie mastered the art of carpentry. An avid reader, he enjoyed the National Geographic, nature books, and a good novel. Settling in Prince Albert, he built many new homes, grew a large garden, contributed to his community, and very lovingly raised 4 children with his first wife, Joyce. He instilled independence and the love of music, love of nature, and a love of learning in his children. Many family outings included camping trips to BC or fishing trips up in northern Saskatchewan. Family gatherings were frequent, which was why we are so close to our cousins. And And he was usually the one that all the children wanted to play with. He was loved for giving his wheelbarrow rides, for making us stilts, and for his popcorn that never had burnt kernels. Louie passed away peacefully in the care of the compassionate staff at Sherbrooke, where he lived the last 2.5 years. Sherbrooke Village in Saskatchewan is a model. I mean, it's if you want to make a contribution, we would be happy that it was made there, because the staff there are so compassionate. They all loved our dad, and that meant a lot to us. He is survived by 3 of his children: Byron, my brother Byron, April and her partner Rob, myself, my husband Greg, the grandchildren Danica, Faraday, Rachel and her husband Jorge, who are here, and his great-grandchildren Kay, Bruno, Paulina, Fior, and Sienna, and his youngest brother Eddie and his wife Margaret, plus numerous nieces and nephews and cousins. And he is predeceased by his parents Olai and Lillian, his siblings Leonard, Lloyd, Laura, Lawrence, who we called Uncle Bucky, and his daughter Joy, and granddaughters Ocean and Sophia. So I think, so I'm going to ask April to come up and say something, but after this song. April? Maybe. I want to thank everyone for coming here. I just thought I'd share some memories that I have of Dad. And as I look at Bruno and Sienna, I'm reminded that my dad played the harmonica as well, as does my brother, as did our grandfather, and he would play the harmonica and step dance at the same time. And so that love of music has gone, I think, from your great-great-grandfather, and I think probably from years before that, up until now. And so now I see my niece's daughter, my niece Rachel, and her kids, Bruno and Sienna. They're developing that same love of music and a love of piano. And Bruno and Sienna, but Bruno especially, has been playing a lot of harmonica. So I think Grandpa would be very proud of you. And I also think that your grandfather, like when Dad was 7 years old, he spent a year, I don't know, Uncle Leonard said it was longer, but a year in the Prince Albert Sanatorium with TB. He thought of sometimes he's running away and coming back home, but he was too sick. I had a point I was going to make on that, but but one of the things they thought was that he had TB because he spent the summer chasing gophers. And I know Bruno has a love of gophers and would have loved that they chased gophers together. And Sienna, I know she loves the nature, and we were taking a little class called Wildernook, and Sienna really listened to the sound of the chickadee and looked at the shapes in nature and things, and Grandpa, her dad, would have liked that. I had looked for a song with the music playlist there's one called Beautiful Dreamer by Stephen Forster, I think that was the name. And Dad had a memory of sitting on his mother's lap, and that she would sing all these old songs to him, Old Black Joe, and some songs that wouldn't be too politically correct now, but but some of those. So a long time ago, when Dad turned 85, I had written a list of 85 things that I love about him. And and I was kind of short on time preparing for this, so I brought this. So thanks to Dad for sharing his stories with us when Rose and I were little. It meant a lot that you did this because it let us know him and know who he was. He'd lift us up and to look inside birds' nests and take a look at the life in there. And it demonstrated that little ones are important. When I would mow the lawn as a teenager, he'd make me mow around the violets. Like I wasn't allowed to mow them over. And it's nice, I like that. He put tadpoles in our pond so that we could watch their growth. And then he put a big fish head in there, and so then you could watch the tadpoles nibbling at the fish and chasing the fish head around. It was just good for some laughs and interesting. He'd set us up with math equations at the kitchen table. Gave me a sense of peace and also security since he was nearby. And he taught Rose and I how to make our first pies. He'd take us tobogganings on weekends at the Little Red River Park with our friends. We always liked the pea shelling parties that we had in our backyard. He'd show us the Norwegian way of putting potatoes in a galvanized metal pail and how to skin them, or the Norwegian way of drying off after a bathtub. Or he'd, when you're little, really little, and he'd soap the side of the tub, and he'd hold our legs and go, wheat, wheat. And our bums could slide across. And it was a great fun. And of course, beards out of soap in the bathtub. He had some nail pounding contests. As children, he was being a carpenter. He'd have these big long shavings of wood, and we'd put them in our hair and pretend they were our curls. He'd get us to participate in his building projects, so building family cabins. And Dad and I helped Byron put up some walls and things like that. And he got us a trailer at Candle Lake, and for me it was a really good place to study, and for Rose to pull a dirty trick on us once when we went swimming naked and she stole our clothes. We had to run after her. Dad was always really tuned into us too. Like he'd know. There was one time I lied about this car accident that a friend of mine crashed the car, but and I had to say I did it because I wasn't supposed to let anyone else drive it. But he understood my motive and was never harsh. He enjoyed the sun and stretching out like a cat in our living room window when the sun streamed in during noon breaks from work. He taught us to relax and enjoy the moment. Animals were always really important to Dad, and we had a guinea pig that we let run loose, and Dad could always call the animals back in. So when snow was coming on the ground, he could always get our din-din back, our guinea pig. And I want to say thanks to him for the word slumgullion. I think it reminded us of pirates and, our imagination. It's kind of a Norwegian word for everything all mixed together in a pot. And thanks to him, we made money to go to the fair by picking raspberries. And one time a little boy had bought some and spilled half his basket. So Dad made sure that we filled it up. And just those little compassionate things, I think, were nice. He taught me how to float down the Shell River. And then we had so many great family picnics with all the cousins there. And certainly up at Big River, we had many, many cousins. And always lots of fun to do. He'd set a tent up for us when we were kids. And our imaginations could go wild in there. And Dad would make us a big bowl of popcorn. And he liked to see us have adventures. There was lots of berry picking trips. One thing, Dad was a big fisherman, and so filleting fish with him was always fun. And you'd lay the newspaper out and open up the fish, and we'd look to see what it had eaten for its last meal. And I always thought the anatomy of a fish was really cool because of him. Let's see. Also taught us how to hold babies, so to get the gas out of their stomach and help settle them. He'd take us to the dump to see bears and to recover dolls that were sick to us. He built stilts and the biggest swing in the neighborhood. And for being a responsible parent, he was safe to be around, nurturing and stable. He also taught us how to use a bow and arrow for target practice and a BB gun to shoot the caterpillars off the garage. Let's see. Oh, also, the rides when we were young, he'd take us to Pete's Bakery in his truck, and there's always a really nice loaf of warm bread, and we'd have that on our lap and look forward to the times that we'd get home and put some butter on it. He had trust in us to teach us how to fish and fish perch off the booms in Big River. He was observant of nature. And one time when Rose and I were little, when there was an advertisement by Shell to put a tiger in your tank. And Dad came home from work and he brought both Rose and I tigers. And that meant a lot. And his love of Benny Hill and Red Skeleton. I think I was kind of appalled by this next one, but then I appreciated it. And as he took a rind of pork fat and he nailed it in the tree, and it was for the birds, so the birds could have it. It looked kind of bad, but yeah. So I got to spend Rob and I got to spend about 2.5 years with Dad. He stayed at our house, and before he went into the Sherbrooke home. And I got to learn a lot of his stories. And, just some really fun, interesting stories, and it was a really enriching experience. And Rose and I were with Dad when, after the Sherbrooke called us, Dad died at 1:35 in the morning on Monday. And so we went, Rose and Greg and I went, and I just have to breathe. So we went to see Dad, and we gave him some last hugs. And that was really nice, and it was a while before Grace came to pick him up. And so we had time to clean out his room. And then Sherbrooke did some really nice things, and one is that they put the flag to half-mast. And another is that when they took his body out on the gurney, they draped the Canadian flag over his body. And then when we went out into the car, and so as Dad's body was being put into the back of the car, both Rose and I started crying. And then I thought, you know what? He was 99 and a half. He lived a good life. He loved all the staff, the night staff there told us how much they loved him. And, he was always hopeful for love too, but he was always giving, and the staff realized that, I think sometimes people go through life and we can get scathed by different things. But despite any hardships, he was loving to the end. And I think that's a real challenge, to not get bitter. And he didn't. He was loving. And so anyways, I said to Rose, so we were crying, and I said, let's give Dad a hip, hip, hurrah. Because he deserves it, for living a good life. And does anyone want to join me in a hip, hip, hurrah for Dad? Hip, hip, hurrah, Dad! Yeah, I think, April, what that goes to show is, when you give love, you get love, and Dad was Dad was pretty loved at Sherbrooke. So, Byron, do you want to come and do some music for us?
My dad had a great sense of humor, and so when I was young, I'd be positive about something, and he'd say, "Are you sure you're positive?" And I'd say, "Yep, I'm positive." And then he says, "Well, only a fool is positive." And he says, "Are you sure you're positive?" And then I'd have to think about that. And he also had a very self-effacing humor too, because one time there was a family gathering and somebody had taken a photo of Dad, and he looks at the photo and he says, "Hey, I look intelligent." So I've got my music from my dad, and Dad was very melodic in his playing. He would play tunes very straight and beautifully, and so when I was quite young and got interested in playing and I listened to Dad, I made the mistake of, I was fairly young, but I said, "So were you a lot better when you were younger?" So I've always felt bad about saying that to him, because he played well, but I don't know, I don't know why I had that in my head. And one other thing that Dad did for us when we were kids in the wintertime, he took 3 sheets of plywood, and we had a garage that had a flat roof, and he made a big sliding hill off of our garage, and then iced it up. So we had a ladder, and we'd climb up onto the roof, and then we'd slide down this long slide. And I remember the first day that he put it up, I saw kids come out of the neighborhood that I'd never seen before. And pretty soon we had like 50 or 60 kids there, and they would get on the roof and they would run the length of the roof and then dive head first. And so Dad had to take it down because somebody was going to fall off and get hurt. So. But it was great while it lasted. So Yeah, so I'm gonna play something from my dad here, and I just wrote it just a little while. And what I'm trying to do in the piece is just express some of the gentleness that my dad has, and hope and stuff like that. And the other thing too is I was fortunate to be with my dad on the Sunday before he passed away, and you know, I was amazed at how deep my dad breathed. You know, he was very strong. I held his hand, and I just felt such a life force in his hand. And when he passed away, I thought, well, he's given me one more lesson, which is to accept every breath that life gives you. And so anyhow, I thought that's a good lesson for me to know as I get older, to really enjoy every breath.
That's really beautiful, Byron. Thank you. I have a poem here that my grandma Olsen had tucked away in a book that she kept. And so I just had a little changed it, modified it a bit. It's called A Father's Prayer. This goes, please let me keep on going, Lord, from dawn to setting sun, till I'm no longer needed and all my work is done. Please let me be around to see my little ones grow strong and keep my shoulders handy for their tears when things go wrong. For not until they're all prepared to face life's rocky road does a father dare to drop his burden and his load. Please let me make our home a place they're happy to be in, and help me by example to keep them free from sin. It's only then that he can it's only then that he can feel he's truly earned his rest, as thankfully he whispers, Lord, I've done my best. Is there anybody else that wants to talk today? You're okay? Rob?
As April said, Louie had the pleasure of living with us for 2.5 years before he went to the home, the veterans home. And at that time, April hadn't retired yet. And so Louie was at home, and I recall making dinner one night for the two of us while April was at work. And I was sitting across the table, and those of you that know Louie, at the end, or towards the end, he was suffering from some dementia. And as a result of that, the stories would sometimes be told, and then they'd be retold, and sometimes they'd be retold again in a short span of time, sometimes 3 times in an hour. And I'd first met Louie, 12 years ago, and he told me about his first mission over Germany as a sergeant flight engineer on a Lancaster. And he told me how they'd been flying over Germany at 22,000 feet, and the flak came up, and there was a plane off 200-300 yards to the left, and the flak caught the plane started to break up, and 3 fellows bailed out of the plane. 3 parachutes only of the whole crew. And as the parachutes came out, they must have had some fuel on them, because Louie told the parachutes all burst into flame, and those 3 men fell to their death. Young fellows, just like Louie. And I'd heard that story many times, maybe 50, 60 times. And like I said, sometimes 3 times in an hour. And this day, as we were sitting across the table from each other having supper, the story started again. It was first flight in Germany, Lancaster, 22,000 feet. I thought, okay, I've heard this story before. But this time it was different. Louie said a very profound thing at the end of the description of the flight and the pilot and the parachutes burning up. He said, when you see something like that, and there's something you have to do in life or that you really want to do in life, you have to do that before you die. That was very profound. Coming out of the mist and the fog of dementia, wow, I'd never heard that before. And it was a very different ending to the story. But the story wasn't over at that. And it's a good thing I was sitting on a bench seat, not on a chair, because what he said next, I just about fell off my chair. He said, to that point, I had never been with a woman. And I made sure I took care of that right quick when I got back. One of the great blessings of Louie was he had many stories over his long life, and he shared them with many of us. And it's something that we can all learn and enjoy and cherish as we go, years yet, because April's recorded many of them, and all of you have shared with us today the memories you have. That we'll all have those memories to, have Louie still living in our lives with, those histories and those stories. So I thought I'd share that with you.
Oh, okay. Jan's gonna come up. Like I said, Dad loved life. Good. Cousin Jan?
Love these masks. I'm Janet. I'm Uncle Louie's niece. And I want to say a last hurrah from all the nieces and nephews to the most incredibly wonderful uncle that anyone could ever have had. He was my favorite, and I bet if you asked any of our nieces and nephews, we would all say that on both sides of the family. He was kind and gentle and loving, and he just put his arms around us and made us feel wonderful. The story about the roof and the ice, my dad said, Leonard, said that he did it first, and Uncle Louie got that idea from him. So I'm sure they're up there arguing about it right now. Who did it first? I'm sure you also remember how my dad would take all of Byron and April and all of us. He hooked toboggans up behind his car, the station wagon. We went out to the Little Red, all the cousins and all the friends, and we would drive down the Little Red, and the toboggans would go like this, back and forth, and we were yelling and screaming. And we always had the oldest cousin at the front with the longest legs, so when he stopped, he could put up his legs so he didn't go under the car. But Uncle Louie actually saved my life, helped save my life when I was very little. I went out in a fishing boat in Candle Lake, and I decided, I was a spoiled kid, I decided that I wanted to go out the boat with my dad and Uncle Louie, and I was out there for a while and got very bored, and just stepped over the side of the canoe into 20 feet of water. Went down, and Dad turned around and Uncle Louie turned around looking for me, and I was gone. When I came up, they grabbed me, so Uncle Louie was part of saving me. I was at Uncle Louie's and Auntie Joyce's house a lot when I was a kid. We were the family known as Scragamuffins, and what's that word, April?
Slumgullions.
Slumgullions, we were, the wildest of all cousins. And I spent a lot of time at Auntie Joyce's and Uncle Louie's. And I just felt like Uncle Louie was a dad to me. He loved me so all-encompassing. And even if I was rebelling and acting out, which I do on occasion, he just let me be me. And I felt like I was at home. I remember him picking me up and spinning me around, and so many incredible memories, the wheelbarrow races. But I was very small, and Uncle Louie was very tall, and I would stand there and look up at him and wonder if I was going to get into trouble for something I had said or done. I'm sure that every niece and nephew has wonderful, wonderful, warm, loving thoughts of Uncle Louie, and we were just so fortunate to have him in our lives and our families be so close. So from all the cousins and all your nieces and nephews, Uncle Louie, we want to see you fly high and be with your brothers and sisters up there. And you mean the world to me. I love you. Yeah.
I think we could all see Dad dancing to that, and up there with his brothers playing, and I like that Dad instilled in us that we probably are nerds to our friends, but we all love fiddle music.
Yeah.
It's kind of what warms my heart. So I'm going to ask the members of the Legion now to provide the honor guard for Dad. Oh, are you gonna come? Oh, sorry, okay. Sorry, we're gonna have one more. Sorry. I thought you were coming and I just... Dad might have loved his kids, but he really loved his grandchildren. And he was blessed to have grandchildren that he could play. The big ball up there is what our dad played ball with, and right up until a couple of weeks before he passed, and he was playing with me and with his grandkids. It seemed to make him come alive and just he loved playing. So thanks, Rachel.
Yeah. So I'm Louie's granddaughter, Rachel. I typically live in Mexico. And I'm just happy that I was here and that I got to see Grandpa and that my kids got to see him before he passed away. Like my mom said, they were playing ball a couple of weeks prior to his passing, and Grandpa was cracking jokes and playing with the kids and saying how strong they were and showing them how strong he was, lifting the ball as high as he could up into the air and using all of his might to lift it up and just really participate with the kids and engage with them. And I was just really grateful for that. And you know, when I ask the kids, like, what do you remember about Grandpa Louie? It's playing ball with him and having fun with him. And I think from what everybody said, he's always had a love for children up until the end. So I'm grateful that my kids also will have that same memory several generations through. You know, when thinking of my memories with Grandpa was, you know, I have so many things running through my head, but it always comes back to these happy memories up at Big River, riding in the back of his truck, riding in the back of a pickup truck, which is something that you definitely should not do, but it was so much fun to do as a kid. Me and Faraday would build the most epic forts in the back. We had some really great Easter egg hunts. And I think even years later we found some eggs that we had missed down in the basement. And another thing that is maybe a little deeper with Grandpa is just his love for the simple things and giving them importance. Like you mentioned, lifting kids up to see the little baby birds in the nest, you know. One of his greatest joys, I think, was eating a fresh potato. Potato from the garden. And that was like the best thing. And he would always say, you know, like, you know, I wonder what the queen is eating tonight. And it's so true. Like, what's better than, you know, fresh vegetables and goodness from the earth? And it's something that's so simple and that I think a lot of people just look past and they want bigger and better and, you know, go for more. And I feel like Grandpa enjoyed the simple things and really took it in and then shared that joy with everybody else. So I'm going to try to be like that. Anyway, I love you, Grandpa.
Thanks. I think maybe that's why Dad chose now to pass, is that he got the family were as much together as we possibly could be, and we were able to go visit him, which was, yeah. Yep. And my son-in-law, Jorge. Malcolm's
Hello to whoever's on the live stream. I'm Jorge. I'm Rachel's husband. I'm going to keep this really short. I don't really have stories so long with Louie, but so I'm here to thank him, really. Him and Grandma Joyce for creating this beautiful family. Family full of kind-hearted people that have unity, and a family that I'm proud of being part of now, and that I'm happy to have my kids be part of course. And I hope and you find peace in this time, and that this unity you guys have is everlasting. So thank you, Grandpa Louie, and may you rest in peace.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the Legion to provide the honor guard now. Is there music that should be? Love you, Dad.
In the presence of the less earthly remains of our comrade, Louie, whose loss we mourn, but whose spirit still lives, may we, as children and members of the Royal Canadian Legion, be charged anew with, can't see with this.
That's okay, hold it up.
With a full sense of our duties and responsibilities to our country and our organization. May we ever strive to uphold the principle of unselfishness service which led us to serve our God and our country in time of war and in peace, so that we may continue to serve even unto death. those who lay down their lives for freedom and truth. We commend their souls into your gracious keeping and pray that we may be worthy of their sacrifice. Help us to be faithful and true to those deals for which we fought for and died. May we continue to perpetuate the memory of our departed comrades by the service of country, community, and comrades, and remembering our solemn obligation, may we ever pray. Lord God of hosts, be with us yet, lest we forget, lest we forget.
Color party, retrieve colors.
With Remembrance Day being a short time away, let us take upon ourselves to remember Louie and his fallen comrades. They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember. Our Heavenly Father, grant, we beseech you, to the loved ones of our departed comrade, your comfort and protection. Amen.
Color party, deposit colors. Color party dismissed.
Thank you, everybody. There's going to be an internment in probably about 20-30 minutes up at the Prince Albert Memorial Gardens in the Last Supper, and where our dad's parents are, and his brothers, and his sister, Auntie Laura's there? No, I didn't think so. Anyways, thank you all for coming. Love you, Dad. Hope this was okay for you.
Color party, quick, Madam. It's just maybe a few minutes before we leave, because I'm